8 minutes after 8 o'clock here on this Tuesday morning, 17 degrees, sunny in Clinton. It feels like 5 degrees rather outside.
From regional radio to WinDailyNews.com and the WHOW app. This is local information making a difference.
Top of the morning. Thanks for being with us. Coverage of the WHOW Morning Show streaming live today on Facebook Live and YouTube is brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin insurance agent in Clinton. Monday night, the Clinton City Council approved a brush grinding and leaf disposal contract for the city's yard waste facility on Kane Street. Commissioner of Streets and Public Improvements, Ken Buchanan, says he would still be interested in finding a new area outside the community and burning as much as they could. He has brought this up before. However, it's not gained much steam, but the nearly $30,000 cost prompted the discussion from Commissioner Buchanan.
Yeah, this is annual grinding brush and stuff. I still, Steve's done some checking into it, but I'd still like to go see what we can do going forward and see if we can't find some place we can burn this stuff and get a permit. We're spending a lot of money on this grinding. I think we just, once again, could say I think we could pay for some ground fairly cheap. So just something I'd like to maybe look into a little further. Donnie said something about one time about you had talked with the county. And
the county was agreeable to putting something out there where we could maybe do something out there. And so it'd just be a matter of talking and getting the correct permits and things, because most of the smaller towns around us do just that. They pile it, they burn it, and they do it like once a month or once a week, and it's been working out. So I know that they can be done, and it would sure save quite a bit, because twice a year having to have this ground, that's a lot of money.
Getting the proper permits, though, could be a challenge. Public Works Director Steve Lobb notes the permit process is not a guarantee, and while he would not speculate on if other communities that burn their brush get the proper permits, he says that's something the city of Clinton should do, and noted getting the permits, again, is not a guarantee.
Guys, if I could interject a little bit, just because it's coming up. As Kenny said, I've got as far as getting to the EPA. And regardless of what other towns are doing, the official that I spoke to over there, especially with the current new administration from Washington on back, getting a permit to burn is not a guarantee or an assurance. And just because others are doing it, it doesn't mean that it's legal or okay. And really, I couldn't even get a commitment from the EPA, because you have to go through a permit process, and to do the permitting, you're going to have to go through an engineering process, because I think I showed Kenny the forms. There are things that has to be calculated with their parts per million of the pollution created, and there's all kinds of rigmarole. But the bottom line is one complaint from one citizen, and they will pull your permit if they issue it. So if you go out and you spend any amount of money on ground and you can't permit to burn it, there you are. So that's where we are. It's not like this hasn't been investigated or looked at. But those are just the facts, and whatever you guys want to do, give me direction and I'll pursue it. But you need to know one complaint on an EPA issued permit, and they will pull the permit, and that will be the end. That's where it's at. It didn't get not looked at. It didn't get not investigated. We took it as far as we could go, and I thought I'd conveyed that, but that's the stopping point.
For the year, the city approved the nearly $30,000 expense. A DeWitt County law enforcement official says his department has been lucky. The staffing issues plaguing law enforcement agencies across the country have spared them, and points out his office will be fully staffed this year for the first time in his tenure. DeWitt County Sheriff Mike Walker told Regional Radio News on the WHOW Morning Show Monday they have 2 individuals currently training in Decatur. Once they're on board, his office will be fully staffed since he was sworn in 2018.
Actually, we're doing pretty well. We got 2 law enforcement trainees down at Macon County Law Enforcement Training Center right now. I believe they start either their 4th or 5th week today. They'll be done about the middle of April and then get on field training. And hopefully we'll have them up and going by end of June. Once we get those 2 back, we'll be back to full staff for the first time pretty much since I've been in office. We had some issues in 2019. I was getting ready to hire a couple people to get us back up, and then we had some uncertainties come up, then COVID. I've hired those 2 people now, so that will put us back up to full staff. In corrections, I got one officer down there, and I got one position that we're getting ready to fill. I got somebody going through the final stages of that. We get that person hired, then we'll be back to full staff back in corrections too. So we're pretty fortunate that we're at that spot. I know most counties in the area. I know talking to Sheriff Vogelzang over in Piatt County, I think he said he's 3 or 4 correctional officers short of a 10 officer staff over there. Champaign County, we were housing for them for a little while. They're short like 20 correctional officers. So correctional officers are even harder to come by than road people.
Sheriff Walker called his department lucky to be able to be in the position they are when there's so many areas of not just Illinois, but the country struggling to keep officers and find officers. Small town police departments also tout the overall positivity their communities show towards law enforcement and its officers. Sheriff Walker believes that's another thing they have going for them.
Yeah, I think we're very fortunate that we live in a community that does support the police department, the sheriff's department. I can't tell you how many times I've had people approach me and, tell me they appreciate everything that we're doing, my staff's doing, compared to some other places that are anti-police or defund the police or whatever. We are very fortunate to have the support of the community. So, and I think that goes a long way when you get people that are getting interested in law enforcement. If they do their research and see the different things, granted, we may not pay as much as a Bloomington or Normal or something along those lines, but one thing I like to tell people, if you go to a place like that, you're going to earn that money. We have our fair share of work to do here, but we're not running, when my guys get here at 6 o'clock in the morning, they don't have 4 or 5 calls backed up. And when they leave, they're not leaving calls for the next shift for the most part.
Sheriff Walker Monday also gave several of his deputies props for the things they did to make sure they would be able to work and be there for the community during last week's winter storm.
Yeah, one thing I want publicly to say, I'm very blessed with a great staff. I mean, last week during the snow, I had some people that live outside of Clinton that knew this storm was coming. They actually got hotel rooms here in town to make sure they were able to get to work, especially in corrections. I had a guy who lives out of town that's a deputy that got up a couple hours early to make sure he was able to get here. So my guys were very responsible, making sure they were here for work.
Like many departments across the state and country, Sheriff Walker says they have changed some things up to recruit potential officers and have joined networks to get their listings out to those candidates as well. A Central Illinois Republican lawmaker is offering up his thoughts on the decision by a Sangamon County judge to issue a temporary restraining order against the mask mandate on Illinois school children. On the WHOW Morning Show Monday, Representative Dan Calkins says despite the length of time it took to get to the decision, he says the decisions of healthcare for kids has been restored to where it should be with the families.
Well, it's taken us over a year to get to this point, but Judge Grishow, I think, made a very, very solid decision. I know the governor doesn't like it because he wants to continue to push people around, bully and enforce his executive orders, use his Department of Education and Department of Public Health to make decisions for families that they should be making on their own. This judge saw through that, in spite of the fact that it's taken so long. She's returned health care to the family. It's the right of the parents to make these kinds of decisions. We know from the science, which we can't get the governor to express or the Dr. Ezeki to even talk about. We've been asking for 18 months, show us the science for your decisions.
According to the representative, Illinoisans are fortunate to have the access to information that's readily available and stand up to and challenge the mandates. But he says every time there is pushback, the goalposts move. Get news anytime at DeWittDailyNews.com.